Chapter 96. Suzihan saw that Mu Jinyu had abandoned her and left, and stomped her feet in anger. She turned to see Jiang Mei and Lady Mu standing behind her. Jiang Mei winked at Suzihan and tears appeared in her eyes. It's all right, Brother Jinyu is not in a good mood. When she finished, her eyes reddened even more. Weeping play was something that had to be learned to be an actor. Suzihan had played a good role under Jiang Mei's influence. Lady Mu, who witnessed all of this, had a cold expression on her face. Ever since the wedding date was set for the two families, her own son had kept a straight face. Men were all like this. They didn't know how to cherish it when they got it, and regretted it when they lost it. Just like her father, he was a man who loved one. Jinyu. Lady Mu went over and said to Mu Jinyu, Zihan did not have a child for you. You can't do anything that would let her down. Mentioning his child, Mu Jinyu thought of Suanan once again. I didn't. Mu Jinyu said, Suanan, you can forget about it. I won't agree to let you two stay together. Suanan was not as obedient as she. Not mentioning her family background, she was the only one who viciously pushed him down, causing her grandson's death. This kind of woman was extremely detestable. Mom. Hearing that, Mu Jinyu said, I know. As long as you know. Lady Mu said coldly, don't forget, Zihan's grandmother is Old Lady Jiang. The Old Lady Jiang was a ruthless old lady who held great authority in the Jiang family. In the past, Mu Jinyu didn't think much of these words, but now he was being lectured by Lady Mu, and reminded repeatedly that Suzihan didn't have his own child. The words Jiang family behind Suzihan's back made him hate them instead. Right, he answered lightly. Go and choose your wedding dress with Zihan. Lady Mu urged. Su-anan. Mu Jinyu waited at the entrance of the university for a long time. Before he could reach Su-anan, he entered the university to look for her. These few days, when he went to Su family, he did not see Su-anan at all. Suzihan said that after Su-anan followed Gumo Cheng, she looked down on them and rarely came back. He wanted to go to Gumo Cheng's place to find Su-anan, but he didn't even know where the Gu family was. Thinking back, Su-anan had been accepted by Ningchen University, and at this time, she had already gone to school. He couldn't help but come to find Su-anan while hiding his intentions from Suzihan and Lady Mu. On the campus path, Su-anan, with her ponytail and short sleeves, was not very eye-catching amongst the group of young girls. But when Mu Jinyu saw her eyes, he immediately remembered how stunning she was after dressing up. He decided to give Su-anan one last chance. Su-anan heard someone call her, and when she turned around, she saw Mu Jinyu throwing down the cigarette in his hand, and in a hurry walking towards her. Su-anan wanted to leave, but seeing that Mu Jinyu was speeding up, she decided to stay where she was. Anan. Mu Jinyu called out, I have something to tell you. As he said that, he extended his hand to grab Su-anan's hand. Mu Jinyu, are you afraid of being thrown? Su-anan asked coldly. As she spoke, she took a step back, not because she was afraid of Mu Jinyu, but because she hated the smell of his smoke. The smell of smoke was really unpleasant. Similarly, Gumo Cheng also smoked, and it was even stronger than what Mu Jinyu smoked. But Su-anan didn't feel that it was that bad. Like a person, really everything in the eye and large is better. Being mentioned by Su-anan about him being thrown over his shoulder in the market, Mu Jinyu's expression changed, and he did not go forward to grab her hand again. I want to marry Suzihan. After Mu Jinyu finished speaking, he smiled and received it. Congratulations. She sincerely wished them both the best. Mu Jinyu and Suzihan were a perfect match for each other. Seeing Su-anan's smile, Mu Jinyu felt that it was very dazzling. He followed. Anan, speak the truth with me. Are you really happy that I married Zihan? If you don't want us to get married, I'm not getting married. After Mu Jinyu finished speaking, Su-anan was not the least bit touched. Whether Mu Jinyu wanted to get married or break off the engagement, it had nothing to do with her. You can do it. Su-anan spoke out her truest thoughts. And Anne. Mu Jinyu suddenly took a step towards Su-anan, causing her to stop in her tracks as well. When Su-anan fell down, her entire back hurt for a long time. But she was still a cheap person. After Su-anan ruthlessly threw him down, Mu Jinyu became even more furious and kept thinking about Su-anan. Anan, you break off all relations with those men, I'll be with you. Mu Jinyu added. The men? When Su-anan heard this, her heart burned with anger. She was only one man, Gumo Cheng. Oh right, Mu Jinyu had always thought that the man who shook the carriage with her at the Su family's banquet was someone she could casually find. In Mu Jinyu's eyes, she was in a terrible situation. Since it was so unbearable, why did Mu Jinyu want to be together with her? Su-anan didn't understand Mu Jinyu's thoughts. In any case, she felt that this man was extremely lowly, and she had never had any good feelings towards this slut. Anan, I know you have my place in your heart. Seeing that Mu Jinyu had forgiven him with such mercy, he said, the past has been settled evenly between us. Let's start again. Su-anan found Mu Jinyu's narcissism to be funny. Why would she still want this man after thinking that he had betrayed her? Besides, although Gumo Cheng was a bit older than him, he was stronger in all other aspects. Was he blind, or was he bewitched? He gave up on Gumo Cheng and turned back to chew on a dregs of grass. Didn't you say that you would only be loyal to each other after having played with each other before marriage? I think you're right. After Su-anan listened to her, did she say anything? Just like what she said in front of Mu Jinyu and his family last time. It was a sarcastic remark. Could Mu Jinyu not understand it? To be disloyal to each other before marriage and even think of being single after marriage, is that possible? Seeing that Su Anan did not reply, Mu Jinyu spoke anxiously. An, did you hear what I have said clearly? Oh, Su Anan replied. Did you hear that? With me? Then Su Zihan? She pursed her lips into a smile. Su Zihan was chosen by Mu Jinyu's parents, and Su Zihan had Zhang family backing him. Hearing Su Anan's question, Mu Jinyu was overjoyed when he thought that she agreed to stay with him. Mu Jinyu pursed his lips into a smile and said, Anan, don't worry, I won't let you suffer grievances. He knew that Anan had her own secrets. As long as he ditched Su Zihan, Su Anan would definitely throw herself into her embrace. But when he thought about how unclear it was for Su Anan and the other men, he felt extremely uncomfortable in her heart. Maybe when he got Su Anan and felt that she had no meaning, he would throw her away again. Is that so? Su Anan said lightly. Don't worry, I will explain everything to Zihan as soon as possible. You know, the one behind Zihan is the Jiang family. You give me some time to take care of it. Mu Jinyu said happily, thinking that Su Anan had agreed to be together with him. Hearing Mu Jinyu's words, Su Anan laughed. The Mu family did not want his relationship with the Jiang family to break down, so Mu Jinyu wanted to marry Su Zihan and support him outside. She, Su Anan, was not interested in this kind of man. Young Master Mu, I like them. I don't plan to break up with them. They were naturally talking about her lovers. Su Anan said coldly. As for your side, Mu Jinyu, I am not the slightest bit interested in you. Hearing Su Anan's words, Mu Jinyu's face sunk. After looking for Su Anan for such a long time, he told her that she was willing to break the engagement with Su Zihan and stay with her. Su Anan was not the least bit touched, and shamelessly said that she liked the men outside. Mu Jinyu felt the green hat on his head shining. An, what do you want from me? I don't care if you had sex with them, and I'm willing to be with you. What else do you want from me? Mu Jinyu asked. You said it earlier, if I don't want Su Zihan, your father and the people of Jiang family will not let me go. Is it not enough that I have come so far for you? As he spoke, he looked at Su Anan's beautiful face and said softly, Anan, you have to give me time to take care of this matter with Zihan. Mu Jinyu didn't clearly recognize his problem, and still felt that Su Anan liked him. It was only because Su Anan cared about her marriage with Su Zihan that she said such words on purpose to anger him. He had forgotten that Su Zihan had just lost a child for him. I missed you. Su Anan laughed, and then slowly, the smile on her face disappeared, and she spoke in a stern voice. Scram! If you want Mu Jinyu to get out of her sight, don't sully her eyes. She and Mu Jinyu had annulled their engagement, and she, who was about to marry Su Zihan, suddenly ran over to her and asked if he wanted to marry her. She wasn't happy at all. She only felt that Mu Jinyu was a disgusting man. Besides, when he came looking for her, she would have to eat a little grass with him. Hearing that, Mu Jinyu's face had a look of anger, and said unhappily, Anan, don't regret it. Su Anan looked at him in disdain. She turned around, not wanting to deal with this scumbag. Mu Jinyu came here to make up with Su Anan, but she didn't expect him to be willing to not marry Zihan for his sake. Not only was she not moved, she even told him to tell her to scram. An, I'll give you one more chance. As he said that, he walked towards Su Anan and grabbed both of Su Anan's hands. Su Anan was grabbed by his hand, and her entire body became uncomfortable. Let go, she shouted angrily. Mu Jinyu did not listen. An, I know you still love me. You followed Gumo Cheng because of money. I will give you all the money I earn in the future. Whatever that man can give you, so can I. An, I love you. I'm really in love with you. Mu Jinyu grabbed Su Anan's hand tightly and expressed his gratitude. There were quite a few people coming and going on the school path. Seeing Mu Jinyu holding onto Su Anan, many people stopped and looked over. Chapter 97. She tried to pull back her hand, but Mu Jinyu held her hand even more tightly. Buck off. Su Anan couldn't stand him anymore. She had always been telling him that she didn't love him, but he had always been saying that she loved him. Love him my ass. What's worth it for her to love him all over Mu Jinyu's body? On the way to Su Anan's dorm, Fu Xin heard the sound of a car passing by. A car stopped beside her. The window rolled down, and the man's stern face appeared in Fu Xin's eyes. Mr. Gu, did you come to find Anan? Yes. I'll take you there. Fu Xin volunteered. Gu Mocheng nodded, and she opened the door and sat in the front passenger seat. If Fu Xin knew that she would see an appalling scene later, she wouldn't have taken the initiative to bring him to Su Anan's place. They arrived near Su Anan's room. Gu Mocheng parked the car and the two of them walked towards Su Anan's room building. They saw that a lot of people were gathered in front of them, and Fu Xin saw Su Anan through the crowd of people. She looked at one of Su Anan's movements and reminded him, An, Gu Mocheng is here. Don't be rash. However, it was already too late to stop her. Su Anan had already ruthlessly stepped on Mu Jinyu's foot, and then, Mu Jinyu? When Su Anan told Mu Jinyu to scram, not only did Mu Jinyu not scram, she even felt that Su Anan had a grudge with him. He felt that compared to him, Gu Mocheng was inferior in every other way, besides wealth and power. Su Anan found another lover who looked a little better. There was no money, no power. With this comparison, Mu Jinyu felt that Su Anan liked her more and more. It was precisely because she was with Zihan earlier and made her angry that she said she didn't like him, something like that. Anan, let's get back together. His grabbing onto Suanan was still not enough. He opened his arms, wanting to hug Suanan. Don't worry, I'll explain everything to Suzihan in a while. Suanan was extremely furious. Her hands had been grabbed by Mujinyu until they were red, and then seeing him open her arms to hug her, she started to burn. The anger in her chest started to gush out. She was unable to control it. Just like before, when she fell on his shoulder, Mujinyu became smarter. He had enough strength to hug her so that she wouldn't be able to move in his embrace. Suanan could not struggle. She lifted her foot and stomped fiercely towards Mujinyu. So regretful. Why didn't she wear a pair of pointy high heels today? Otherwise would be stomped to death. Suanan used all of her strength to stomp down, and even if she wasn't wearing her high heels, Mujinyu immediately released him from the pain and bounced back a step. Anan, what are you doing? Just as he was questioning Suanan, Suanan raised her leg and kicked towards his lower abdomen. Suanan not only knew Taekwondo, she even learned it from Fushin. The two of them felt that the girl needed some self-defense skills, and they had fought before because they had never been bullied before. Mujinyu never thought that Suanan would actually lift her leg and kick him instead. He hastily retreated. Suanan's kick did not hit him, but as he retreated, his body unsteadily fell backwards. In order to prevent himself from falling, Mujinyu subconsciously used his hands to support himself, but he did not expect that he would still fall unsteadily. He was truly unlucky to have been beaten to the ground 3 times in a row. The first was Suanan's shoulder throw. The second time, he was kicked by Gumo Cheng. This time, he was kicked by Suanan again. It was really tragic. When Suanan had kicked, she had heard someone call out to him, but she was furious at the time. Furthermore, she had been annoyed by Mujinyu to the point that she was about to explode, causing her to be unable to control the anger in her heart. If she didn't kick Mujinyu fiercely today, she would be pestered by him the next time. Therefore, he had to teach him a good lesson. When Suanan kicked Mujinyu, she had covered her face and watched it all. This time, it wasn't for Mujinyu, but for him. How could the well-behaved Suanan explain this to Gumo Cheng? She revealed the gaps between her fingers and secretly looked at Gumo Cheng, who was beside her. Gumo Cheng's face was really ugly. The look in his eyes was really scary. Anan, your husband is here. He saw you viciously hitting people. As she was thinking, Fushin ran towards Suanan before she could do it. Anan. Suanan heard the voice but did not turn her head to look behind. She knew from the voice that it was Fushin calling her. Xiaoxin, I'm powerful, right? Fushin went over, and while worrying about Suanan, she walked in front of Suanan, pulled her clothes and reminded him, Anan. Suanan looked at Mujinyu, who was slowly climbing up from the ground. Because his hands were in a lot of pain, his entire face had become pale white. When she saw the man who walked over with a cold expression, the man's eyes fell on his hands. His eyes were filled with coldness, causing Mujinyu to panic inwardly. Suanan, you? Mujinyu recognized him. It was the man who kicked him, and how Suanan had kicked him just now. Mujinyu's eyes almost spouted fire. Suanan, you are too shameless. Mujinyu asked while enduring the pain, staring hard at Suanan. I'm shameless, young Master Mu isn't the first day to know. Suanan could not control his emotions and retorted Mujinyu coldly. After she said this, Fushin became even more nervous. Anan. Fushin called out, using all her strength to signal Suanan to look behind him. Suanan said, Xiaoxin, stop pulling my clothes. This man should be beaten, he's crazy. He came to me for some strange reason, to be with me, to be base, to let me beat him up, and then he knew that I really had no interest in him at all. Suanan was ecstatic. The kick just now had made him feel much better. The pain in her hands had lessened greatly. Anan. Fushin really couldn't watch any longer. Anan, don't reveal your true nature. Gumo Cheng just stared. She moved closer to Suanan's ear and reminded him in a low voice. Your husband is here. Hubby? Suanan repeated in confusion. She turned her head to look at Fushin and glanced at him. This time, Suanan was confused and started panicking. It's over. It's all over. When did he arrive? When she hit Mujinyu, Gumo Cheng didn't see it right? When you stepped on his foot, Fushin replied. When Suanan heard this, her mind raced, which meant that when she kicked Mujinyu, Gumo Cheng saw it all. She did not know what to do, and lowered her head, not daring to look at Gumo Cheng. Gumo Cheng looked at Mujinyu coldly. He walked to Suanan's side and said indifferently, Let's go. Seeing that, no matter how foolish Fushin was, she knew that she had to leave. She said to Suanan, Anan, take care. I'll leave first. Anan, you could only pray for good fortune. Seeing Fushin running away with oil on her feet, and looking at Gumo Cheng, Suanan became nervous to the point that she did not dare say a word. I'll drive over. Gumo Cheng looked at her, and told her to wait in place. Yes. Because of Gumo Cheng's appearance, Suanan's arrogance had completely disappeared, turning the wild cat who was baring its fangs into an obedient rabbit in an instant. She looked at Gumo Cheng's back, and couldn't help but smile. Gumo Cheng walked to the side of the car, but did not get on the car, and instead took out his computer and gave it to Xiaoyan. Find a group of people to help me beat someone up, Gumo Cheng said. Gumo Cheng had something he needed, so he was spirited now, and it was even a beating. He pushed the woman in his arms away and said, "Who dares to provoke you?" "Mu Jinyu," Gumo Cheng said coldly. When he came to him, not only did he see Suanan stepping on Mu Jinyu and kicking him, he also saw Mu Jinyu's hand grabbing onto Suanan's butt tightly. The red mark on the back of Suanan's hand made him angry. Mu Jinyu? Xiaoyan quickly searched through his mind about this man's identity. He needed Gumo Cheng to find someone to beat him up. After thinking about it for a while, Xiaoyan remembered that his fiancée from before was called Mu Jinyu. Don't tell me that someone surnamed Mu has a relationship with your wife and gave you a green hat. When he finished, he thought it was wrong. If Suanan cheated and put a green hat on Gumo Cheng, with her personality, she would not only have found someone to break both of Mu Jinyu's arms. He was sure that the fire had broken Mu's head. You think I can't compare to Mu Jinyu? Gumo Cheng's cold words reached Xiaoyan's ears, causing him to feel a chill all over his body. That was true. In terms of looks, abilities, in any aspect, Gumo Cheng was much more than 10 streets away from Mu Jinyu. That may not be the case. All young ladies nowadays have problems with their eyesight. Moreover, those with the surname Mu are younger than you. Age does not differ by much. There is no generation gap. Furthermore, he might be more interesting than you, this old man. Xiaoyan purposely said these words to provoke Gumo Cheng. He was jealous that Gumo Cheng was powerful, hence he found a little girl. In this period of time, his show of love had made him extremely unhappy. Is that so? Gumo Cheng replied coldly. Hearing Gumo Cheng's cold tone, Xiaoyan giggled. I will immediately find someone to teach him a lesson. Yes, I can, Gumo Cheng said coldly. Xiaoyan thought that for such a cruel and merciless man like him, he would still lose to Gumo Cheng in this aspect. Mu family had announced the marriage of Mu Jinyu and Su Zihan 2 days ago, and his wedding would be the 11th. Gumo Cheng broke the person's arms right now, so this wasn't like Mu Jinyu marrying into a concubine. Let's not talk about bad luck. How are we going to get married if we can't use our hands? Xiaoyan was confused. Why did Mu Jinyu make Gumo Cheng so angry? Previously, when he knew that Mu Jinyu and Su Anan had an engagement, Gumo Cheng was not so angry. How the hell did he offend you? Xiaoyan asked curiously. It was definitely not because Su Anan and Mu Jinyu had made up, but only because Mu Jinyu was crazy. What's more, Gumo Cheng doted on Su Anan so much. Of course, in this world, there were still some heartless women who didn't know what was good for them. Chapter 98. Damn. This was how Gumo Cheng did things. Xiaoyan was furious, but still arranged for his own hands to be pummeled by Mu Jinyu, and even specially instructed the guards to smack Mu Jinyu in the face, and not to forget to break both of his hands. Gumo Cheng drove over and saw that Mu Jinyu was still glaring at him. Get in. He drove to Su Anan's side and rolled down the window as he spoke. Su Anan immediately walked to the front passenger seat and sat down. Su Anan, you will regret this. Su Anan had not only beaten herself up, she had also abandoned him and left with this man. He put down her dignity. She didn't mind having relations with so many men coming to find her, yet Su Anan had actually left with another man in front of him. She would regret it, she would. Gumo Cheng did not immediately start the car to leave. He looked at Mu Jinyu coldly and said, What does she regret? Su Anan, who was sitting in the front seat, confirmed in his heart that she would not regret anything. If she married Mu Jinyu, she would regret it for the rest of her life. She liked Gumo Cheng very much. Regret not having eaten your herb? Gumo Cheng said coldly. Returning grass is too much. It's fine if you don't eat it. Su Anan had never heard Gumo Cheng scold others before. She felt extremely good listening to him scolding Mu Jinyu. Being scolded at in front of a girl, Mu Jinyu's face turned ugly. He touched his back that was in pain from Su Anan's fall, then looked at Gumo Cheng, who had a cold face, and ridiculed. Sir, you really like to pick up second-hand goods that others have slept with? Hearing Mu Jinyu's words, Su Anan turned and looked at him in shock. He really didn't think that Mu Jinyu would be disgusted to this extent and say such things to her in front of Gumo Cheng. Second-hand goods? Gumo Cheng's gaze turned cold as he said this. Letting Xiaoyan find someone to break Mu Jinyu's hand, it seemed like this punishment was too light. For money, she, Su Anan, followed an old man. Mu Jinyu told him about Su Anan following Gumo Cheng. He wanted to see if this man would still protect Su An after hearing about her terrible situation. What Mu Jinyu did not know was that the old man he was referring to was Gumo Cheng. Old man? Hearing Mu Jinyu say that he was an old man, his eyes grew even colder as he stared at Mu Jinyu. Even his voice carried a hint of coldness. Since he was with Su Anan, he did not like others calling him old man. Yes, Su Anan is very shameless. I think that other than you, there's not only one other man, sir. Please don't be tricked by her. Just now, she said she wanted to be with me. Mu Jinyu laughed and inverted right and wrong in front of Gumo Cheng. I didn't agree, and she beat me up. For a woman like that, Mr. has to rub his eyes. Mu Jinyu's words infuriated Su Anan. If it wasn't for the fact that Gumo Cheng was sitting beside him, Su Anan would have definitely gotten off the car and kicked him ruthlessly. Kicking him to death, letting his mouth be dirty, letting him be scum. Mu Jinyu didn't think that what he just said was excessive. He wanted to see who else besides Su Anan, who else would want to say something as ugly as this. Only he himself wouldn't mind about Su Anan and the other men. She actually didn't know how to be grateful. Gumo Cheng finished listening to Mu Jinyu's story with a dark face and mocked coldly. I was tricked by her. What does that have to do with you? It doesn't matter if I wipe my eyes. An can just wipe them clean. There was some hidden meaning behind these words, but he turned to say that Suanan had shined her eyes and did not want Mu Jinyu. With that said, Gumo Cheng rolled up the window and was too lazy to talk nonsense with Mu Jinyu. How was An? He knew in his heart, after hearing Mu Jinyu's words, he was truly annoyed, and was angered to the point that he did not hit Mu Jinyu too hard, and only broke both of his hands. Young Master Mu, we'll be leaving first. I wish you good luck. Suanan then waved and said, goodbye. They would never see Mu Jinyu again. To say such things to Gumo Cheng in front of him. If she accidentally met Mu Jinyu the next time, she would throw him over her shoulder. Inside the carriage, Suanan looked at the cold and gloomy Gumo Cheng. She could tell that Gumo Cheng was in a bad mood. Was it because he saw her kicking Mu Jinyu, or because of what Mu Jinyu had said? Hubby, I'm sorry. I'm usually very obedient, Suanan turned and said. Gumo Cheng drove the car and lightly said, next time you see him, kick him a few more times. Hearing Gumo Cheng's words, Suanan was not angry at all. How far away are these men? He only felt that Suanan wasn't ruthless enough with this kind of man. Yes. Suanan saw that Gumo Cheng was not angry at her, so she nodded continuously. Get lost to him, Mu Jinyu. It's best if you don't appear in her line of sight. She felt that she should still explain her defensive skill. Xiaoxin and I have learned a few lessons in the Taekwondo dojo before. Furthermore, she and Fuxian had fought together so many times. Be it shoulder wrestling or kicking, they were both very powerful. Of course, Suanan would never tell Gumo Cheng about the fight. Girls need to learn some self-defense skills. Gumo Cheng didn't have any objections. If Suanan didn't order a few punches and kicks today, and was entangled by Mu Jinyu, and Gumo Cheng didn't come over himself, she would definitely be bullied. After listening to Gumo Cheng's words, Suanan relaxed a lot. She then thought of a question and probed. Hubby, if I really followed a man younger than you and prettier than you, what would happen to you? These words caused Gumo Cheng to recall that Uncle Chen had once said something to him. In the future, we will meet all kinds of men. Sir, you have to be careful. Once you enter the Gu family, your life and death will be determined by the Gu family. Gumo Cheng said indifferently. Suanan understood what Gumo Cheng meant and turned to ask, do you want to be a human or a ghost? Seeing his calm expression, Suanan knew that he was even angrier and did not dare to ask any more questions. She was curious. She thought that Gumo Cheng had called her yesterday to pick her up in the afternoon, so she thought that he had come to take her out for a meal. However, looking at the pile of boxes in the back seat, it seemed more like he was bringing her out to be a guest. She smiled and asked, Hubby, where are we going to eat? Gu family. Gumo Cheng, who was driving, replied lightly. Gu family? She looked at Gumo Cheng in confusion. Does it take so much to look back at home? Gu mansion? Suanan reacted and looked at Gumo Cheng in shock. Gumo Cheng nodded. My parents want to see you. Gu Zhen and Old Lady Gu had long wanted to see Suanan, especially Old Lady Gu. Last time when Suanan mistakenly picked up Old Lady Gu's call, Old Lady Gu urged him to bring her back. Gumo Cheng made arrangements for the Gus, taking advantage of Suanan's break tomorrow. To let them know, he brought Suanan to make a trip back. Suanan immediately became anxious. She didn't prepare anything, and thought that Gumo Cheng had brought her out to eat. I'm not prepared for anything. Suanan thought about the conversation she had with Old Lady Gu on the phone. In the phone, Old Lady Gu's unhappy tone made her a little worried. It's good enough to go. There's no need to prepare anything. Gumo Cheng said and added, I've bought everything I need. Suanan thought of the gift box in the back seat. Those things were things that Gumo Cheng had prepared for her. When she thought about it, she looked at the side of Gumo Cheng's face. The carriage was very bright, and when Suanan saw his face, she couldn't help but smile. Right. Gumo Cheng replied. The Gu mansion was not in the Peace City. He liked the peace and quiet, so Gu Zhen moved his home to the suburbs. After Suanan found out that she was going to the Gu mansion, she became worried. She had already met Old Lady Gu and called her mother. But this time was different. She clearly felt that she was nervous, and her palms were sweating. What if Gumo Cheng's parents didn't like her? They despised her as the unfavored daughter of the Su family, and felt that she was too young and not as elegant as those famous ladies. Suanan was worried. In her opinion, the Gu family was originally fond of Su Zihan. She wanted to replace Su Zihan and go over there with him. Would she be despised by Gumo Cheng's parents? Her heart raced all the way to Gu mansion. She looked at the quiet and secluded courtyard in front of her and couldn't take a step further. Let's go. Gumo Cheng took the item and said to Suanan. Suanan followed behind him like a little wife, following closely behind. She must be more obedient today. If Gumo Cheng's parents didn't like her, she had to be obedient and couldn't retort. Gumo Cheng brought Suanan into the Gu mansion. The villas in different districts of Gu mansion occupied a large area of land. The houses that were built were not very tall, only 2 to 3 stories high. However, the greenery inside was done very well, and the quiet air was especially fresh. Wrong way. Walking into the garden, he heard Old Lady Gu's voice. Suanan looked towards the direction of the voice and accompanied Old Lady Gu in playing Go. Then you can take it back. Gu Zhen smiled and said. Old Lady Gu took back her chess pieces. When she realized that she had already lost all her matches, she threw the chess pieces down and said angrily, I'm not playing anymore. I always lose. How boring. He had already blocked her path, so no matter where she went, she would lose. No matter what she did next, this old man would not let her win. Gu Zhen laughed, as if he was accustomed to Old Lady Gu's shamelessness. It's because your chess skills are too bad. He's too stupid. Gu Zhen said to Old Lady Gu disdainfully, but he did not forget to mock the old lady's stupidity. Hearing Gu Zhen call her stupid, Old Lady Gu was unhappy. Don't be too proud. When my son comes back, tell him to kill you. Old Lady Gu said angrily. Just as she finished speaking, she turned and saw Gu Mocheng standing in front of her. Deal. As she spoke, she stood up and quickly walked towards Gu Mocheng. Gu Mocheng also went over, and Old Lady Gu saw him opening his hands and pouncing over. Chapter 99. Before she could fall, Gu Zhen, who was behind her, called out in a calm voice, Han Shi. Old Lady Gu was someone from the Han family, and their relationship was very good. Dad, Mom. Gu Mocheng dodged Old Lady Gu's embrace. He could not endure his mother's passion, and even more so, could not bear Gu Zhen's cold eyes. The two of them were both in their 70s and 80s, and their relationship was very good. It could be said that Gu Zhen doted on Han Shi day after day, right? Gu Zhen walked up, looked at Gu Mocheng, and answered. This son's career was far above his own, making the Gu's even better. Unfortunately, in terms of feelings, he did not have his own way. As he was thinking, he saw Suanan, who was following behind Gu Mocheng. The little girl was 20. Younger than his family's Ziming. Thinking about this, Gu Zhen's face darkened. Such a young girl, Gu Mocheng had the face to attack her. Gu Mocheng felt Gu Zhen's displeasure and pulled her to his side after holding her hand. This is An. Su Anan politely bowed towards Gu Zhen and his wife, and then the word parents stuck in her throat. Old Lady Gu had long seen Su Anan. Seeing the little girl embarrassedly follow in front of Gu Mocheng, she couldn't even try to keep a straight face and act like a malicious mother-in-law. Father, mother, go in. While Old Lady Gu was speaking, Su Anan called for the exit. Her voice was very soft, and when Gu Zhen and Old Lady Gu heard it, they did not make it difficult for her. Cheng, Mom knows you're here today, so she asked the kitchen to make some soup for you. Drink it while it's hot. Once they were in the main hall, Old Lady Gu spoke to Gu Mocheng. When she had finished, the servant came in from the kitchen with a large bowl of soup. Nope. Gu Mocheng thought back to what Han Shi had said on the phone, asking him to heal his body, and he knew clearly in his heart what kind of soup this was. Your mom knew you were back, so she stewed it for a long time. Gu Zhen said unhappily when he heard Gu Mocheng mercilessly reject his wife. He then looked at Su Anan, who was beside Gu Mocheng. You need to recuperate. I'm quite old, and I'm taking on such a young wife. If he found someone so young, he definitely wouldn't be able to control himself in that aspect. Even Gu Zhen started to worry about his son's abilities. Being called an elder by his parents, Gu Mocheng's face darkened. I don't need it. Dad, you should make up for it. Old Lady Gu did not say what this tonic was, but father and son were clear in their hearts. The only one left in the unclear room was Su Anan. What is he trying to add? Is he still trying to find a little girl for me? Old Lady Gu said angrily. After she finished, she fawned on Gu Mocheng with a smile. Cheng, drink up. This is a good thing. Old Lady Gu was completely different from Gu Zhen, who snorted in anger. I stewed for a long time. Nope. When Gu Mocheng heard that it was cooked by Old Lady Gu, he was even more determined to not drink it. Can you drink the stuff the old lady poured out? After he finished speaking, Gu Zhen glanced at him. You go upstairs. I have something to discuss with you. Gu Mocheng turned his head and looked at the anxious Suanan beside him and shook her hand. You, chat with mother here. Old Lady Gu had wanted to go upstairs for a long time. She wanted to chat with Suanan urgently. Before leaving, Gu Mocheng told Old Lady Gu, don't scare her. Old Lady Gu nodded her head repeatedly. Hurry and go. It would affect her and the little girl's conversation. Seeing Old Lady Gu nod her head, Gu Mocheng was still worried. Let's go. I'm afraid your mother will eat her. With regards to Gu Mocheng's unease, Gu Zhen coldly sneered. Yes. Gu Mocheng responded without giving face, and warned Old Lady Gu with her cold eyes. Gu Mocheng and Gu Zhen went up the stairs one after the other. Old Lady Gu looked at Su Anan with a cold expression. Not polite at all? Su Anan sat up straight as she heard the old lady continue. You don't know who to call? After entering for a long time, she did not even call out, Mom. The voice just now was too soft and did not count. Su Anan's face reddened as she heard this. She took a deep breath and said, Mom. Yes. When Old Lady Gu heard this mother, she was overjoyed and thought that this girl was fun. But she could not reveal it, and continued to look at Su Anan with her indifferent face. She pointed to the soup in the servant's hand. Drink it. When he thought about how his son had grown up and had been kidnapped by a little girl instead of giving him face, he felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. Oh. Su Anan looked at the greasy soup. She didn't want to drink it, but looking at the old lady's sullen face and the fact that she didn't dare to refuse, she didn't want Gu Mocheng to be embarrassed. If she wanted to be a good wife, she naturally had to listen to her mother-in-law's words. With that, she stood up, took the large bowl of soup, and began to drink. I have to finish it, Old Lady Gu added as she stared at Suanon. Suanon looked at the big bowl of soup, drank it, and didn't want to drink it anymore. But being stared at by Old Lady Gu, she could only close her eyes and gulp it down. Old Lady Gu looked up and watched as Suanon finished the soup, her face revealing a smile. This girl is interesting. Suanon drank the whole cup and immediately felt uncomfortable. It was not only the soup that was greasy, but after drinking it she felt a little dizzy. She sat there, not daring to tell Old Lady Gu that she was feeling terrible. Your name is An, right? Old Lady Gu asked even though she knew the answer. She liked to see the nervous look on the little girl's face. Right, Suanon said. Yes, no. The Old Lady Gu reprimanded her intentionally. Suanon immediately replied, yes, right. Old Lady Gu drank some water and looked at Suanon. Suanon had inherited her mother's skills and was as fair and beautiful as Surochu. Especially those eyes, they were so lively that they seemed to know how to speak. The more Old Lady Gu saw, the more satisfied she became. She started to feel strange. Why would such a beautiful girl fall for her family with her eyes blind? However, the old lady still pretended to be picky of Suanon. How old are you? 20. 20! After saying that, Old Lady Gu looked at Suanon for a long time as she muttered, Chen Cheng is too old. 31, 20 years old. This comparison was indeed made by Gumocheng by a lot. Suanon thought that she would say that she was too young. What kind of thing was that? Don't tire my son out. Our family is too old, let him take it easy. This little girl was so soft and tender, her son definitely wouldn't be able to bear looking at her. Old Lady Gu thought, no way, her grandson still hasn't arrived, how could he let them come here leisurely? Hold on tight, try to give birth to a child this year. Suanon communicated with Old Lady Gu and understood what she said just now. Her face burned, and she lowered her head. Not this year. Old Lady Gu turned her head and asked the servants behind her, what month is it now? Madam, it's September now, so there's no time to give birth. Oh, Old Lady Gu nodded. Next year, you must definitely let me hug your grandson. It was not that she did not want to give them drink, it was just that Gumocheng did not give her face at all and did not eat her cooking. Thinking about how her own son despised her culinary skills, Old Lady Gu felt her heart ache. This soup cost her an entire morning. She added all kinds of tonics into it, insisting on recuperating Gumocheng's body. Drink it all. Gumocheng did not drink, so Old Lady Gu could only stare at her. Oh, Suanon agreed, then closed her eyes and drank the water. It was so bad, even worse than the soup she made. Suanon thought, but when Old Lady Gu asked her if she liked the drink, she nodded, showing that it was delicious. The Old Lady Gu was extremely happy. Stay here tonight, Mother will stew the soup again tomorrow. Chapter 100. While talking, Old Lady Gu had thought about it. In the future, she would stew soup for her own wife to eat every day, raising her son's wife until they were white and fat so that she could bear her big fat grandson. Thinking about her grandson, Old Lady Gu laughed so hard that her eyes narrowed into a line. Suanon didn't know what Old Lady Gu was thinking. She only felt that her head was spinning and something seemed to be coming out of her nose. Why did she feel something flowing out of her nose? Suanon was confused. Seeing the panic on Old Lady Gu's face, she pointed at Suanon and said, blood. Suanon's nose was bleeding. Old Lady Gu saw Suanon's nose bleed and her vision dimmed before her, and she fainted. Old Lady Gu had a severe coma. Last time on Old Man Mu's birthday, she saw the blood that flowed from Suzihan's body after she fell to the ground and fainted. It was the same this time. After the word blood, she fainted. Suanon saw that Old Lady Gu had somehow fainted, and she was feeling very uncomfortable. The blood was flowing out of her nose even faster. Seeing that the old lady had fainted, the servants brought blood out of Suanon's nose and shouted loudly. Gumocheng followed Guzhen upstairs. Guzhen's face was ugly. He felt that Gumocheng should not have married Suanon. Is that girl over 20 years old? Guzhen immediately said. Gumocheng found a place to sit in the study room and replied indifferently. When the father and son had cold expressions, their expressions were very similar. At the age of 20, because you are 10 years younger than me, you managed to make me sleep. Gumocheng, you are becoming more and more powerful. Guzhen slammed the table angrily and said angrily, I'm already asleep. Gumocheng took back Guzhen's words lightly and asked, You want me to dump her? Guzhen was startled, obviously. He did not mean it that way. The Gu family was traditional in nature. Since they had fallen asleep, they should be in charge until the end. Otherwise, they wouldn't have touched anyone else at that time. Humph. Guzhen could not compare to his own son, so he snorted angrily. He could not tell his son to throw the little girl off, but Gumocheng did not listen to him. Suzy Han is 2 years older than her. Gumocheng added, The difference between you and me is not small either. Guzhen told him to marry Suzy Han. Why didn't he think that Suzy Han was young? This is different. Guzhen took over and said. Gumocheng clearly understood in his heart why Guzhen wanted him to marry Suzy Han. It was because of the relationship between his and the Jiang family. Dad, let's wait for the matter to end before we head to the main station to collect the marriage certificate. I'll marry her. Mocheng, are you serious? Gu Zhen asked in surprise after hearing what Gumo Cheng had said. Right. Gumo Cheng replied. There was nothing more serious than this. He had slept with Su Anan in the beginning, and felt that as a man, he should be in charge of things that he should do. Behind him, he slowly came in contact with her. He couldn't bear to see the little girl being bullied by others, so he wanted to protect her for the rest of his life. Gu Zhen did not speak. He looked at the trace of a smile on the corner of Gumo Cheng's mouth and felt very surprised. How many years had it been since he had seen his son smile? 10 years ago, that woman had nearly ruined his son, who had been so focused on his career that he hadn't had time to fall in love. He and his wife were both worried about Gumo Cheng's life. He had found a lot of women for Gumo Cheng. He was either too busy to go and see them, or came back to say that he didn't like them. Although this Su Anan was a bit young, but still fit into Gumo Cheng's eyes. Originally, Gu Zhen wanted to ask Gumo Cheng, do you love that girl? If you don't love her, don't let it hurt your whole life. But, after talking about it, Gu Zhen understood. Since Gumo Cheng was determined to have her, and brought her to his house, and protected the little girl in front of him, and also said that he wanted to get her proof. This was definitely due to him having intentions towards someone else. As for whether or not one falls in love, as time passes, Gumo Cheng would probably have an answer in his heart. Mo Cheng, Gu Zhen asked, probing, if that person comes back to find you, what will you do? Which do I choose for my first love and current love? Many men, upon encountering this, didn't know how to choose. His first love was unforgettable, and because he didn't get it, he couldn't let it go. When his first love came back, he would remember their past, and they would be connected. To his wife, the man was still responsible for the family. However, if the first love had some tricks up its sleeve, the man might just abandon his wife and be with his former lover. What will you do? Gumo Cheng asked. Gu Zhen sneered. My first love and my wife are the same person. He loved his wife from beginning to end. Gumo Cheng replied to Gu Zhen, I'll do whatever you want to do. Gu Zhen was startled. He had taught Gumo Cheng to be responsible for his feelings since young. As a man, once he falls in love with a woman, he would not abandon her. It was also because of this that Gumo Cheng was only injured by that woman 10 years ago. He had forgotten to tell Gumo Cheng some women's thoughts were too bad. You had to see them clearly before deciding not to be infatuated with them. Mo Cheng, marriage is not a joke. Gu Zhen said again, not at ease. Gumo Cheng replied, I'm serious. As for the people from the past, father, I only know that An is my wife. Gumo Cheng said. Gu Zhen looked at him with both eyes, wanting to see from Gumo Cheng's eyes whether his words were true or not. He knew his son was serious, so he didn't say much. However, he had a good opinion of Su Anan's age. The little girl is too young. Why did you pick her? Being young and nice can let me have a young mindset, Gumo Cheng retorted. There were too many people telling him the age difference between him and herself in front of him, so Gumo Cheng didn't want to hear about it anymore. Gu Zhen was about to say something more, when he suddenly heard movement downstairs. They looked at each other. Could it be that the daughter-in-law downstairs was fighting? Gu Zhen immediately stood up and told Gumo Cheng, who was beside him while he was walking away. I already said that she's too young, won't do, doesn't have a sense of propriety when she speaks, and she's not sensible enough. When you're old, you can be very willful. Gumo Cheng replied back to him. These words were obviously saying that old lady Gu was spoiled by Gu Zhen to be reckless, doing things at such a young age, just like how she was. Gu Zhen snorted and in a hurry walked to the door. What's going on? When they reached the stairs, the servant ran over to Gu Zhen while panting heavily. Master, madam has fainted. Hearing that old lady Gu had fainted, Gu Zhen's face darkened and reprimanded the servant as he walked. What happened? Why did she pass out? They quickly walked down the stairs, and Gumo Cheng felt that old man Gu was making a fuss. Whenever his mother saw blood, she would faint. She must have fainted because she saw blood. They went to the living room, and when they left, the servant said to Gu Zhen, Madam has fainted from blood. As she spoke, she sneaked a glance at Gumo Cheng behind her. Young madam had a nosebleed, and the madam fainted when she saw it. With that, they walked to the living room sofa. Gumo Cheng, who was originally standing behind Gu Zhen, saw the tilted head and quickly overtook him. He walked in front of Su Anan. Why are there so many nosebleeds? He looked at the blood-soaked tissue inside the dustbin and asked worriedly. Su Anan looked at Gumo Cheng and laughed. I'm fine. Mother fainted. As she spoke, she raised her head and pointed at old lady Gu, who was lying on the sofa. Old lady Gu slowly opened her eyes. When she saw that Su Anan was bleeding from her nose and head raised up, her vision darkened and she fainted again. Seeing that old lady Gu had fainted, Gu Zhen shouted at him in anger. Why did you bleed your nose so badly for me? Su Anan was scolded so innocently. She saw the 2 big bowls on the table. It was old lady Gu who made her drink the soup just now. She did not drink, so he forced Su Anan to drink. If she didn't give Anan that nourishing soup, would Anan have a nosebleed? Gumo Cheng coldly replied to Gu Zhen. The 2 of them were defending their wives, neither of them allowing the other to take half a step. Humph. Gu Zhen snorted as he glared at Su Anan in displeasure. If the elders let her drink, she had to drink, Gu Zhen said snappily. What's her opinion? In front of anyone, the first thing he protected was his wife, regardless of whether it was his son or grandson. It was precisely because of this that he spoiled old Lady Gu so much that even Gu Mocheng couldn't stand to watch anymore. Mother has fainted. What does this have to do with Anan? Gu Mocheng said indifferently. As he spoke, he took the towel from the servant and placed it on Su Anan's forehead. The father and son duo often quarreled over small matters. Gu Mansion's servants had watched too many of them, but this was the first time they saw two people arguing over their own wives. I'm sorry, Su Anan said apologetically as she watched the father and son fight. Gu Zhen glared at Su Anan and said, Don't give me a nosebleed. Gu Mocheng felt that Gu Zhen was making a ruckus because of the damned soup. Gu Zhen didn't blame old Lady Gu for even half a word, but he was actually blaming Su Anan for having such a good nosebleed. Old Lady Gu woke up to the noise of the father and son duo. She looked at Su Anan, who was leaning on the sofa, and felt a little guilty. After listening to Gu Zhen reprimand Su Anan, she tugged on his clothes and said unhappily, Enough, don't scold my daughter-in-law to leave. Otherwise, I'm not done with you. The old Lady Gu said angrily. Gu Zhen suddenly had a feeling that he had been disliked after getting what he wanted, and his position in old Lady Gu's heart dropped another level. He then looked at Su Anan with a cold gaze. Anan, are you all right? Old Lady Gu felt better and sat up and said. Su Anan laid her head on the sofa, afraid that her nose would bleed again. Go back to your room. Gu Mocheng said to old Lady Gu. Old Lady Gu was unwilling to leave as she had not talked enough with Su Anan. Mom will make you soup in a few days. Hearing old Lady Gu say that she would make her soup, Su Anan felt like the blood in her nose was going to come out again. Mom, Gu Mocheng said in a displeased tone. Anan looks up and is very tired.